we should be able to make this a pretty quick one. I just want to review some of the things that have gotten us to the point where we are in class. So if we look at this image, the surrender at Yorktown, what made this possible? That's really the gist of what we are preparing for the exam on Thursday, or the test on Thursday, which will be part multiple choice, part short answer, like the first test. The questions that we need to be able to answer are relative to what got the colonists to the point of revolution, and then how did they accomplish successful revolution. So how do we get to this moment? And so I'm just going to go over a couple of things that we looked at in class today. Just looking at the dilemmas and then the American solutions to those dilemmas. So, for example, the first dilemma that we looked at, and I'm not going to go over all of them, just a couple, but being outnumbered and outgunned, 2-to-1, 3-to-1. When it comes to weapons, having more weapons on just a few ships than the Americans had in total. That's very difficult to outmaneuver. It's very difficult to outdo. The American answer, some of these are going to seem trivial, but they're true. Resolve. The fact that they had a commitment to a cause is significant. They have something that they're fighting for, something they're fighting to achieve. Their strategy, as we saw with the Daniel Morgan piece in the video today, where you have a very unique approach to warfare, something that the British almost view as like cheating, that they view as being against the rules of war. And you take that idea and combine it with crafty leadership, the ability to get people to buy in and believe, which it's difficult to explain, it's difficult to understand, but Washington had it. He had this uncanny ability to get his soldiers to buy in and to follow his orders. They wanted to please him. They wanted to fight for him. The strategy of having a defensive approach and only fighting when you were sure that you had the right situation, not that you had the best odds, but that you had the right situation where you're picking the battlefield, you're picking the terrain, you're picking the location, you're picking the escape route in case things don't go well. And by doing these things over and over and over again, you can prolong the war, you can drag it out, you can make the British chase you all over the place, and it wears them down. And one of the things that really is going to ultimately end this war is the fact that the British get sick of fighting, they get sick of spending money on fighting this war, they start to see negative results, they're not sure what can be accomplished. If we get them back, are they not going to rebel again? Are they going to be good, loyal colonies again? And you have to weigh all this against the cost of the war. Another dilemma that we looked at today was this idea of the British ability to change strategies, and this is true because of their resources, because of the ships that they have, because of the number of men that they have. All of these things allow them to be a pretty transitional army. So they go from New England, where they kind of get pushed out of Boston, and then they regroup and they go after New York, where they're going to cut them in half, and then we get the significant Battle of Saratoga in 1777. That's one that you need to remember, the Battle of Saratoga. It's a significant turning point of the war. I think it's the significant turning point of the war. And then they go to the Southern strategy, where they thought they would rouse up the Loyalists and just march on the rest of the colonies, or what they perceived at that time to be the colonies. But the Americans, they get through this by, again, the list is similar: commitment to their cause, resolve. Don't discount French naval aid. The fact that they have the French, they get through this through British errors, and then we start to see a more traditional approach, not to battles, but approach to their army. The significance of the contributions of von Steuben, like we saw in the video that we watched in class today. Coordinating the efforts between Washington and his Southern Army, coordinating the efforts with the French Navy, and really just taking advantage of the positives that they had going for them. When we look at one last one. Let's look at this one last one. The last dilemma, the lack of information. And I think that this was covered very well today in class, and hopefully you got some good notes on it. But if you're going to be an interior wilderness-based guerrilla army that's only going to strike when you feel that it's best, you're going to kind of hide out as much as you can. You're going to try to make your opponents defeat you rather than give them the opportunities to beat you in a traditional battle. Well, that's going to isolate you a bit, and that network of spies continually giving Washington information is critical. It's critical to the success. Just like with the first unit, I gave you kind of those two benchmark concepts. It was either going to be questions were either going to be about mercantilism or about the changing relationships. Here we have, they're a little bit larger in terms of the concepts, but it's this idea of passing the point of no return. So one concept would be when rebellion turns into revolution. So these things that aggravate the colonies after the French and Indian War, and that kind of that slide to revolution. I think of that as like 1763 to 1776. So things like the Stamp Act, things like the Proclamation of 1763, the Coercive Acts, Quartering Acts, putting soldiers in the colonies, all of those things that serve to aggravate the relationships. Now the relationship is strained, and now we're getting to the point where the relationship is broken. So when rebellion turns into revolution. And then the second concept is this idea of winning the war despite overwhelming odds against it. And here, we have just things to reference like the significant figures. There's a generation of people that make this possible on both sides, and that's where some of those bios that you did came in. I would encourage you to look at a few of them, but I'll just give you a hint that you're going to be fine if you can remember some of the key information. You'll be fine on this part of the test if you can remember some of the key information from your person. The decisions that they made, Washington's decisions to listen and go and try and meet the army at Yorktown. I mean, just little things, and then significant events like choosing to write the Declaration of Independence, having the French arrive just in time for the siege at Yorktown. All of the timing, the significant timing, and the strategies, guerrilla warfare, not being afraid to pick off officers, not being afraid to hit and run, taking a loss but surviving with your army. If you could just inflict some damage on the English and get out alive, that's a victory. All of these things will tie in to what I'm looking at, should tie into one of these two things. So tomorrow in class, we're going to just tie up some loose ends, answer a bunch of questions that you might have, and I'll just try and pose you with some. And then we're going to get into just kind of a little bit of a review of some of the things that we did, and I'll post another VoiceThread review tomorrow. But hopefully this brought some of the things together.